You know, I've always thought bobcats were fascinating predators, and I've enjoyed hunting and trapping them. I've called them in with mouth calls, I've called them in with electronic calls, and I've run them with hounds. They're beautiful cats, and they're always a challenge to hunt. You know, besides being one of the most beautiful predators, bobcats also hunt almost exclusively with their eyes. That's what causes them to notice the prey that they're going after. Now, don't get me wrong. Do they use their nose and do they use their ears? Of course they do. And I've watched them use their ears to locate mice in thick grass where I know that they either heard them squeaking or moving around, and then they moved up and pounced on them. But the majority of the time, if you watch a bobcat hunting, it's his eyes that he's using to locate prey and then sneaking up on them. That to me makes them very unique. Because bobcats usually hunt with their eyes, that's the reason I always like to have a visual attractant, like a decoy going when I'm playing a fox pro call. It's just another thing to convince the bobcat that there's something there. It seems like they believe their eyes almost more than anything else. I've had them come in to the sound of a dying rabbit or a dying squirrel or even a woodpecker, only to stand there and stare for a while, and that they don't see anything that convinces them that that animal's there. They just lose interest and walk away. In the circumstances where I've had a decoy going, I've had bobcats hone in on that decoy and slip right up to it. And that's what's fun about predator calling for bobcats. The other thing I try and take advantage of where legal, like in Texas, is I try and hunt them at night whenever I can. Because bobcats are mostly nocturnal, that's when they do the majority of their hunting. You know, I've called bobcats in all different types of the day, but night hunting bobcats could be one of the most efficient ways to harvest one. Another great way to harvest bobcats is using a trained pack of hounds. If you have a fresh bobcat track and some good hounds, you could be in for a very physical day, but a pretty rewarding day if they end up putting a cat in a tree. Good girl, Rhonda. Good girl. Look at that. Good girl, Rhonda. Good girl, Rhonda. You worked hard. That is a beautiful Colorado bobcat right there. That's awesome. You know, one of the coolest things that happened while I was calling bobcats is before the bobcat could even get to where I could see him, a couple coyotes came running in. Jake, who was filming for me at the time, spotted the bobcat before I did. He said, "Fred, there's a bobcat right there." And I'm like, "I don't see him at all." He said, "It snuck in. He's sitting looking at the call, looking at the decoy." And I'm like, "I don't see him at all." And then I look to my right and I'm like, "But here come a couple coyotes." These coyotes come running in. I end up shooting a coyote. I miss the other one just as it's ducking through the fence. I swung back after missing the second coyote, and the bobcat was still there. So at that one set, I shot a beautiful bobcat and a beautiful coyote. Pretty dang cool. You know, one of the really cool things when you call a bobcat in, it usually slides in super stealthily. It's very rare that one will run into a call. I've seen them run into the call, but 9 out of 10 times, they're literally stalking the sound of the rabbit in distress or squirrel in distress or bird in distress, whatever you're playing. So you really have to keep your eyes open when you're hunting bobcats or calling for bobcats because they are so stealthy when they come into the call. You know, the difference is a coyote, it's easy to spot them because they're usually running full out or darting in or trotting in to check out the call, whereas that bobcat, super stealthy. That's why it's rare for people to see bobcats. They use their camouflage perfectly. I've even driven past them where they were standing just outside the edge of the tree line, and unless you just happen to see a little movement or catch them, it is just as easy to drive right past them. But coyotes are easy to spot even from the vehicle because if they're out in the field, they're usually trotting. They're almost in perpetual motion. Whereas bobcats are exactly the opposite. They spend most of their time either standing and sitting there watching or moving along super quietly and slow. So they're two totally different predators that react to the sound of the call totally differently. The other huge difference is because it takes so long for a bobcat to come into a call, I usually play the call for a lot longer. Most of my coyote setups are 20 to 35, 40 minutes. When I'm hunting bobcats, I'm usually a minimum of 30 minutes to an hour because it really takes a bobcat a lot of time to stalk up to a call sometime or a decoy. So it takes more time for you to sit there and wait without getting spotted to try and see a bobcat. I think a lot of people would harvest more bobcats if they left their call playing longer. If they sat in their spot a little bit longer, even though a coyote didn't come running in, there may be a bobcat sneaking in. And of course I learned that the hard way by going to stand up. I'd be finished with my set, think, oh well, nothing's coming in. I'd get up to go get my call and a bobcat would take off 20, 30 yards away sometimes from my call that I never saw until I actually stood up. It's those lessons that you learn while you're hunting that teach you a lot. And I've learned that for bobcats, you really can't sit too long. If you're in an area that you know has bobcats because you've got fresh sign, fresh scat, if you let your call play a little longer than normal, odds are you'll end up seeing a bobcat.